What up, though? I don't got no dog in the fight. I was taught to read, memorize, and regurgitate what someone else wrote and or said. I'm asking you, have you ever had an original thought? Do you know what an original thought is? Don't be embarrassed. Together, let's think about the percentage of original thoughts that we all had versus what we've memorized, stored, and vomit. Transcription. Cathy Obrien's presentation, Mind Control. A presentation to Justice Pro Se by Mark Phillips and Cathy Obrien, June 4th, 1996. Many establishment secrets and personal reputations were staked on the belief that I could not be deprogrammed to remember those things that I was supposed to forget. They never considered the strength of the human spirit. Now that I am in control of my own mind and ultimately my free will, I'm telling all that I've witnessed and experienced behind the scenes as a mind control slave. These people that have been in control of our country for far too long are extremely intelligent, yet they don't think deep. They are limited in their thinking by their own immorality. As you hear this information tonight, please bear in mind that we are all enduring a mind war. Mind control is a psychological warfare weapon. Because it is psychological, we must deal with it in a logical manner. And that's exactly what they aren't counting on. What they want all of us to do is to hear this kind of information, become hysterical, become emotional, and listen to all the hate crimes that are being built up in our controlled medias and start shooting at each other. Although my victimization is extreme, it certainly is no more horrific than what is happening in society today. From the erosion of our constitutional values to the drug wars being brought to our streets, to all the horrors that we are enduring through such things as Waco, Ruby Ridge, the Oklahoma City bombing. Instead, by giving you this information on mind control, I hope that each and every one of you will have a much better understanding of exactly what is going on in our country. I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, to a multi-generational incest-based family. My father had been abusive as a child. My mother had been abused as a child, and they were abusing me. As far back as I can remember, my father was abusing me. And I've often heard them brag that he began substituting his member for my mother's nipple while I was still an infant. This confused my primitive. This confused my primitive nature. It put into an area of pure survival. It put it into an area of pure survival. It was the same to me as eating and drinking. It was for this reason that I was targeted as a slave in the MK Ultra project. Another reason that I was targeted is because in multi-generational families, as the Hitler-Heimler research discovered, and as has certainly been elaborated on since then, was discovered that when a person endures trauma that is literally too horrible to comprehend, the mind's sane defense to that kind of trauma is to compartmentalize the memory of that event in a certain portion of the brain so that the rest of the mind, dissociative identity disorder, as it is now termed, it used to be called multiple personality disorder, but that was not an accurate description of exactly what really is going on. The compartmentalization of memory. I developed a memory compartment to deal with my father's violations. The neural pathways would actually open up to a part of me that dealt with my father's violations, could deal with him again and again and again as needed. That part of my mind was closed off because that part of my mind was closed off behind that amnesic barrier, and I would function absolutely free of any memory of that horrific abuse. It's not that what my father was doing was morally wrong that I comprehended. I was just a little bitty kid. There was no way I could know that it was morally wrong, but instead I endured the pain and the suffocation of his violations. The administration understood from a study that has long since been that this compartmentalization of memory should prove ideal for keeping their perverse secrets. In my case, since I had been abused, I was used as a slave, and therefore my suggestible mind was programmed to carry out and fulfill perversions of certain politicians who did not want their perversions known to the rest of the public. I developed another compartment in my mind to deal with my mother's psychological abuse. My mother suffered from dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder, as it was known back then as well. I developed another memory compartment to deal with the I developed another memory compartment to deal with the XXX that my father was subjecting me to. My father had a sixth grade education and earned his living as a worm digger and supplemented the family income with proceeds from child XXX. The child XXX that he was subjecting me to was also being manufactured by my mother's brother, my Uncle Bob Tanis, also of the Muskogee, Michigan area. Uncle Bob was part of the Air Force intelligence and also claimed to have been working for the intelligence arm of the Catholic Vatican, the Jesuits. My Uncle Bob was heavily involved in the manufacture of XXX at the time. When my father made an XXX film with me and my uncle's dog Buster, which was a kitty XXX Beast film, they were caught sending this child XXX through the U.S. mail. When this happened, my Uncle Bob Tanis came to him and explained to him that there was an operation going on here in the United States called MK Ultra. He told my father that if he would agree to sell me into the MK Ultra mind control, that he could receive immunity from prosecution. My father thought this was a great idea. He thought the government actually condoned child XXX. He went on to have 5 more children to raise in the project. There were 7 of us in all. Also, at the time, a certain criminal faction of the administration was sanctioning this kind of child XXX because they were interested in finding out which children were being used in the XXX, which children could be targeted for mind control because they knew that if a child was abused prior to the age of 5 before their minds and brains could be completely formed, that they were far more receptive to mind control. Nope, 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 nope. If y'all following along, y'all can see the words that I'm substituting. Because my channel is because I invite families with their children, friends, relatives, all to benefit from the show. It's certain things that I don't need to say. I'll let you read along and you can read those words yourself. Once my father agreed to sell me into the project, we were visited by the head of the local ring, Gerald Ford. He explained to my father how to raise me in the project. My father was immediately flown off for a 2-week course. When he came back, my victimization became more horrific. At that time, my father had been instructed to take me to Mackinac Island, Michigan. It was my experience that Romney was interested in implementing mind control into various aspects of society. He also believed that bringing mind control into the school system would be very beneficial for teaching children greater amounts of information. Michigan educational system ranked first in the nation for quite some time during those years. It was actually a forerunner of global education, or outcome-based education as it is now called. Ford had been abusing me for a long time anyway. He was interested in traumatizing the minds so that he could gain control. With dissociative identity disorder, a person develops 44 times visual acuity. I believe it is an effort to see things before they happen, in an effort to see the trauma before it actually occurs, and the eyes are open wide. 44 times visual acuity means that a person so trained would be able to shoot and never miss their mark. They would never miss their target. Because with that kind of visual acuity, they are far more apt to be able to see and to aim and to shoot. I was never trained in that particular area because I was being raised as a slave. I also learned at Mackinac Island, Michigan, about the Catholics' involvement, not to say all Catholics. I want to encourage y'all to read along or go back and read so that you can see the actual words that are being said instead of the words that I'm using to substitute some of these words that I may be inappropriate for the shorties. At that time, Father Don was the head of our church and was bringing mind control in on a mass scale. In 1966, I was subjected to what was termed the right to remain silent. That's RITE, as in ritual. At that time, Vanderjagt came in and joined Father Don in exposing me to a blood trauma that was so horrific to me that it just blew my mind. They placed a series of hypnotic codes, keys, and triggers in place of my natural switching mechanism so that they could decide when, where, and how that particular compartment of my brain could be accessed. I had no ability to express any free will at all after that. I certainly would not have participated in any of these events that I was forced to participate in of my own free will. After this, I was exposed to and dedicated to who would become my owner in the project, Robert C. Byrd. Byrd had been in office as long as I had been alive. He's still in office today. He's head of our Senate Appropriations Committee. As my owner, he decided which various military and NASA installations I would be taken to for sophisticated mind control programming, and later on throughout the Reagan-Bush administration, it was Senator Byrd who decided what criminal covert operations I would be forced to participate in. Byrd was extremely brutal. One of the first things that Byrd ordered was that I be sent to Muskegon Catholic Central High School. At Muskegon Catholic Central, the groundwork for the outcome-based education was already in full swing. They were testing the effects of trauma on the human mind, because it was my understanding from everything that I heard and experienced that the Catholics had long since learned the effects of trauma on the human mind through such things as the Spanish Inquisition. They have been gathering information for centuries. It was extremely effective. I sensed that the whole world condoned shorty abuse, that the whole world was somehow involved in this, and that I'd long since lost my hope, and there was a place in the world where good people, and that I'd long since lost my hope that there was a place in the world where good people even existed. In 1977, Byrd ordered that I be transferred to Nashville, Tennessee. In Nashville, Tennessee, mind control was in full swing. Operations were being run through the country music industry. Country music industry was very much part of the criminal covert operations at the time. Wayne Cox would become my first handler in this project. As my handler, Wayne Cox would follow orders from Byrd to make sure that I was at designated places at specific times for whatever purpose Byrd ordered. I was subjected to numerous occult rituals. Wayne Cox was using trauma to trigger other mercenaries into operation at the time. Sounds like a movie. Did you hear about any of this during that year that I was talking about? How about y'all, the parents? Or how about y'all, the grandparents? Did y'all hear any of this? Were y'all paying attention? Did y'all care? These mercenaries had all been dissociative identity disorder children. By 1978, it was determined that I had endured sufficient trauma to be programmed on a more sophisticated level, and J. Bennett Johnson took me to Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma. It was there that I endured the first extensive military mind control programming that would force me to participate in a trial run operation. Johnson was sending the mercenaries into South America, and he firmly believed that when the airplanes went to South America with the mercenaries, that they should not come back empty. The airplanes were coming back full of dopes. The airplanes were coming back full of dopes. I was programmed to deliver large quantities of dope from the state of Louisiana in the neighboring state of Arkansas. It was 1978. Clinton was governor of Arkansas. At the time, I witnessed homie doing one-on-ones. My experience with him was extremely limited because it was my experience that he is bisexual, leaning far more towards the homosexual end. It is for that reason that we can consider why Clinton ordered this year in the outcome-based education system that our children have to endure a gay celebration month. Hillary accessed my programming and used my programming. Technologically, they are 25 years ahead of us, using that blanket of national security for a long time to withhold information from all of us. By 1980, my daughter Kelly was born. She was born right into the project on a much more sophisticated, high-tech level of victimization than I had ever been subjected to as a child. Kelly was exposed to harmonic mind programming at NASA installations and military installations literally since birth. I had no ability to prevent her abuse. Nashville, Tennessee, our second mind control handler, Alex Houston. Alex Houston was a stage hypnotist and ventriloquist in the country music industry. Country music industry would provide the perfect cover because I dressed like a prostitute and I acted like a total airhead. And people tended to think that was probably the norm for the life of a country music entertainer. That was the public image that was protected. Let's shake it. In 1983, Bird ordered that I attend a cocktail party, and he acted in the capacity of a pimp and prostituted me to then president, the actor, Double Law. Double Law said to then Prime Minister Brian Mulroney of Canada that he believed the only way to world peace was through mind control of the masses. I also heard Bird talking about how he was counting on the American populace to do absolutely nothing about all of this. Because he said good people don't think to look for criminal activity. Good people don't have criminal minds and they don't think criminally. And therefore, when we have something put in front of us like world peace, something that we all hold so precious and dear, we're not apt to look behind that at what the reality is behind the scenes. And they were counting on good people to do absolutely nothing and to assume absolutely nothing. The war on drugs is no more than eliminating their competition. People all across the country send their children to school, and their children come home completely different and robotic, completely different from anything that they recognize with values of socialism. Every state in the United States accepted the outcome-based education financing because they were told it was the only way they could receive any federal funding or any grant money. Every state in the United States accepted outcome-based education but one. Fob James Jr. of Alabama. Throughout the 80s, I was forced to participate in the war on drugs and mule copious amounts of drugs into this country against my will. My daughter Kelly ended up in the custody of the state of Tennessee, where she remains a prisoner today. Do the right thing.